Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Scott Garrett Show. I'm doing this show in response to a blog that I wrote a few months back, and I called it Reality versus Imagination. Some of the ways that single mothers, unwittingly in most cases, go about feminizing their boys or making the role for their boys to be men a lot tougher. Some of the things that they do are, first of all, saying things like, all men are dogs. You have to realize that you're talking to someone who eventually will become a man or will become an older male. It just depends on which way you look at it. But if you're saying that all men are dogs, then at some point he has to ask himself, am I a dog? And if I am, what am I doing to be a dog? And if I don't want to be a dog, what do I need to do differently? Stay away from that type of thing, because then you don't even have to qualify those statements and saying, well, your father's a dog, but little Billy, I love you. Those things are confusing for men because we work on logic, and that's an emotional thing. And it's hard for a boy to learn logic if he's always in these emotional situations that he's being put in. One of the craziest things that you can do is telling your son he's the man of the house. There is no way that somebody who's not working, who doesn't pay any bills, who still depends on you for all of their stuff, clothes, food, and everything, is the man of any house. So you don't set him up to even think that he's a man of a house, because what that does is when he becomes 13 or 14, he has this mentality like he is responsible for you or for the house. So then he goes out and thinks that he needs to sell drugs or he needs to do something. He needs to get rich or die trying. Okay? If you don't want to see this kind of stuff happen to your son, don't ever let him think that he's anything more than your son. Because he isn't. And stop treating him like he's your man. Treat him like he's your son. Okay? You might fix your man's food and be happy to do it. Some women will, some won't. Wash their clothes, rub his back. All those things are things that you should be reserving to do for a man that you are in a physical relationship and an emotional relationship with. And that's not a role that your son is ever supposed to fill, is the role of the man in any house until he has his own family. That's when he becomes the man of a house. Anything else, he is a child. Treat him like a child. The other things is by nature, you are feminizing your son because he's watching you. He watches everything you do. And if you don't set clear and concise boundaries about what you're doing being what a woman does and what he should be doing being a man does, he doesn't know. But if he's one of these kids and you let him put on your shoes and wear your shoes, or he's putting on wigs, he's wearing women's clothes, and he's got more piercings than a rock star, playing with girl toys, and you're saying it doesn't matter, he's just a little boy. Well, it does matter. All of those things matter, and all those things are part of feminizing him. One of the things you see now is you can't even go anywhere where there's dancing involved and see boys or men dancing like women, dancing harder than the women, dancing more effeminate than the women, dancing with each other like you might see women. All this stuff is a byproduct of what they're seeing. If he's at home and he's got sisters and you've got all your friends over and everybody's dancing and everybody is saying, oh, look at you, go, go, go. He wants that same feeling that he sees all the girls getting. So he's going to jump out there and your little man is going to be dancing like a little lady while you're screaming for him. Go, go, go. Not good. Not good, because that's not how men behave and that's not what we do. But if that's the only way he can get affection and he can get noticed in the household, then that will be what he does. He'll dance his little butt off just to get the attention that he craves. Can you train a boy to be a man? The answer is absolutely not. There's no way you can do it. Because a woman will never understand testosterone. You'll never understand what it feels like to have a penis. You'll never understand why men gravitate toward sports and wrestling and those type of aggressive activities. And you'll never be able to teach him more. One of the most important things you'll never be able to teach him is how to love a woman. But what you can do is you can teach him how, in a fantasy world, you would like to be loved. But when he goes out and he finds out that he's not in a fantasy world, he will be walked on and treated poorly by all the women he comes into contact with, because in his mind, you've taught him that all women are princesses and all women should be treated like this and they should be treated like that. You have to ask yourself, how many times have you been treated like that? And if you've never been treated like that by a man, don't fill your son with this Pollyanna fantasy view about how he should treat women. You have to leave that to a man to show him how a man loves and treats a woman. Stop trying to suppress the boy's nature. If he wants to play with guns, let him play with guns. That's normal. Don't be domineering. Don't speak down to him. Don't, at every occasion you have, put your thumb on him thinking that you're showing him discipline, because all you're really doing is destroying him emotionally and destroying his small male ego before he can even get it going. One of the things that single moms tend to create is mama's boys. And a mama's boy, don't be confused with someone who loves their mother. There's absolutely nothing wrong with loving your mother. You very rarely see a man who says he doesn't love his mother. That's not the same as a mama's boy. A mama's boy is where you are not letting your son do the things that it takes to be a man naturally. You want to bail him out of every situation. You want to make sure he never scrapes his knee. If he gets in a fight, you're out there fighting for him. If a teacher says something to him, a male teacher especially, if they say something to him, you're at the school and you want to argue with the teacher. It's small things that are part of a boy being a man that a woman will never understand. If you're around enough boys, you'll understand that boys crave independence. They want to do things themselves. They really don't want to have you show them everything. But yet, this is exactly what's going on in a lot of these homes. What you have to think about it in these terms. If you have a son and your son is 7 or 8 years old, when that son is 23 and 15 some odd years later, is he going to be the type of man that you would even want? So are you creating something that you would be attracted to, or are you creating something that someone else is going to have to take care of? And that's the question. So it comes down to choices. I would never sit here and say it's totally impossible for a woman to raise a man. I wouldn't say it's totally impossible. But without any male help, I would say yes, it's impossible. Because male behavior is something that's modeled. You can't talk about it if you aren't living it. Different situations will come up where that's not possible. But when that isn't possible, get your son around role models that are the type of men that you respect. Get him around those men. He'll pick up naturally a lot of the things that he needs to pick up. But don't try to constantly blur the gender roles. Gender roles are reality. Men don't think like women and women don't think like men. Because if that were the case, there would be no way that we could get together. There would be absolutely no way that we could get together and raise successful children and have good families. There has to be some balance. If you don't have a spouse, you can't create an equal balance, and that's fine, because even people with a spouse sometimes don't have an equal balance. But you can instill enough in your son, and you can water that seed and allow it to grow, and then eventually he'll grow also. One of the tough things is when men come into your life, because now you have a lot of blended families. When these men come into your life, you love that man and it's nothing you won't do for him, and and you get married and he brings his kids into the relationship and you bring yours into the relationship, there's very seldom a problem when you have a daughter. It's not a lot of problem because that man understands that, hey, she's got a role model. I like that woman. I think she's beautiful. I like how she is. So he assumes that you're modeling that behavior to your daughter. And there's never an issue there. But alas, there's always an issue when you have a son. And that son's father is not in the picture. Or that son's father is in the picture, but he's not a very good role model. One of the first things it says to me is, hey, you picked him. You picked that dad. If that dad is not a good dad, that's who you pick. That's your selection process. So with him not being in the picture, and that's how you select your mates, are the things that you're going to be giving to your son as far as being a man, is that going to make him as good a man as that man who you aren't with? You have to ask yourself that question. The new man. Why select a new man and bring him into your life and then trust him with your heart, trust him with your money, trust him with your home, trust him with everything, except trust that he's man enough to discipline your son, something that you can't do by nature. You have to understand that it's not a slam against you. This is just how nature designed it. Men are logic, women tend to be emotional. When you have a son who's prone to emotional outbursts, if that man asks your son to do something and your son starts to cry, that's not male behavior. It isn't. You can call it what you want to call it, but it's not male behavior. And that behavior will manifest itself in a lot of different ways later in life. When you have a man who can't control himself emotionally, they got a place where they control you, and it's called prison. When you can't control yourself emotionally, the line between, when the line is blurred, you'll beat a woman as if she's a man without remorse because you don't think that there's a difference and you've never been taught that there's a difference. If in a perfect world, everybody would have every single thing that they need. But this isn't a perfect world. This is a world built on choices. When you choose to raise a child alone, if that is a choice or a situation that you find yourself in, there are still choices that you can make within your situation to mitigate anything that you're putting into your son naturally. It's not blaming you because you're a woman and you're doing the things that a woman does naturally. And he's seeing it and he's picking it up. He's rolling his eyes. He's making noises. He's doing a lot of things that he's seen you do. Which may be the same if you grow up with your father. Men may tend to say you're frigid because you aren't showing the typical emotion that they would ascribe to a woman. So it works both ways, but more often than not, men suffer or boys suffer from not having the proper leadership of a man to guide them into manhood. So I like to say, make better choices and you'll get better results in everything you do in life.